The day started like any other for me, Emily Carter. I had just finished a long shift at the diner where I worked. It was late fall in the small town of Willow Creek, and the chilly wind outside seemed to seep into every bone in my body. By the time I closed up the diner, grabbed my purse, and walked out to my car, all I wanted was a warm blanket, a cup of tea, and a quiet evening alone. Life had been heavy lately. Work, bills, and the general loneliness of living by myself in a house that often felt too big and too silent. The drive home was quiet, the streets lined with orange leaves that crunched under the weight of passing cars. I remember humming softly to the radio, the kind of habit you don't even notice until silence falls again. When I turned onto my street, the houses all sat dark and still, most of my neighbors already tucked into bed. My own porch light glowed faintly in the distance, a beacon that usually brought comfort. But that night, I noticed something unusual before I even pulled into the driveway. There was someone sitting on my front steps. At first, I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, my heart racing. It wasn't exactly common to see strangers waiting outside houses in Willow Creek. As I pulled in closer, my headlights illuminated the figure. It was a man, young, probably mid-20s, with messy brown hair, a worn jacket, and a tired look on his face. His posture wasn't threatening. He sat with his head down, his hands clasped together, almost as if he were trying to keep warm. Still, I hesitated. I cracked the car door slowly, keeping my keys clenched in my fist, ready to press the alarm if I needed to. "Can I help you?" I called out, my voice carrying across the still night. The man lifted his head. His eyes were weary but gentle. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, standing up. "I didn't mean to scare you. My name's Ryan. My car broke down a few miles back, and I've been walking for hours. I was just looking for somewhere with a light on. Yours was the only one." I studied him carefully, my mind racing through every worst-case scenario. But something in his voice, something about the way he shifted uncomfortably, as though aware of how this must look, eased my fear. He didn't sound like someone trying to trick me. He sounded exhausted. And lost. I sighed. "It's freezing out here. Do you need to make a call?" He shook his head. "I tried, but my phone's dead. I didn't know where else to go. I'm sorry if I bothered you." The sensible thing to do would have been to wish him luck and send him on his way. But that night, something tugged at me, maybe compassion, maybe loneliness, maybe the voice inside me that whispered I would want someone to show kindness if I were in his shoes. Against all the cautious instincts drilled into me, I found myself saying, "Look, I can't let you stay outside in this cold. I have a couch. You can crash there for the night if you want." Ryan's eyes widened, relief flooding his expression. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "You'll freeze out here if you don't," I replied firmly. "Come on." I unlocked the door, and Ryan stepped inside, wiping his boots carefully on the mat. I kept a wary eye on him, though. He looked around my living room politely, not touching anything, almost as if afraid to disturb the space. I grabbed an extra blanket from the hall closet and tossed it onto the couch. "There you go," I said. "The bathroom's down the hall if you need it. Just don't make me regret this." He gave me a small smile, almost sheepish. "You won't. Thank you, really." That night, I retreated to my room, my heart still racing from the strangeness of it all. I half expected to wake up to find something stolen, or worse. But when morning light spilled across my bedroom, everything was still intact. The living room was quiet, save for the soft sound of breathing. Ryan was still there, curled up under the blanket, sleeping like he hadn't rested in weeks. I stood in the doorway for a moment, studying him. There was something undeniably vulnerable about the way he looked, and my suspicions slowly melted into sympathy. I made coffee, the aroma filling the kitchen, and soon enough, Ryan stirred. He sat up groggily, running a hand through his messy hair. "Sorry," he muttered, standing. "I'll get out of your way." "Sit," I said, surprising even myself. "Coffee." He hesitated, then nodded gratefully. We sat at the table, two strangers sipping coffee in the morning light. That's when the story began to unravel. Ryan told me he had been traveling across states for work, trying to land a construction job in a bigger city. His old car had given out on the highway, and he had been stranded without money for a motel. He looked embarrassed as he explained it, but there was honesty in his words that I couldn't ignore. Over the next few hours, I found myself listening to him talk more than I had listened to anyone in months. He spoke about growing up in a small town, about how his father taught him to build things with his hands, about wanting to make something better of his life. There was no arrogance, no hidden agenda. Just sincerity. By the time afternoon came, I had offered him lunch. By evening, when it was clear the mechanic in town couldn't get to his car until Monday, I offered him another night on the couch. Each day stretched into the next, and soon Ryan wasn't just a stranger in my living room. He was someone who helped carry groceries in from my car, someone who fixed the creaky cabinet door in my kitchen without being asked, someone who made me laugh at things I hadn't thought were funny in a long time. And somewhere between the ordinary conversations and the unexpected kindnesses, something changed inside me. I had invited him in out of compassion, maybe even caution, but I never expected him to remind me what it felt like to not be alone. The nights grew longer, the air colder, and Ryan's presence warmer. He told me about the jobs he was hoping for, about his dreams of building a life where he didn't always have to scrape by. I told him about my late-night shifts at the diner, about how sometimes I felt invisible in the world. He listened, really listened. That, more than anything, was something I hadn't realized how badly I needed. What I thought would be a single night of letting a stranger sleep on my couch turned into something that reshaped my life in ways I never could have expected. Because sometimes the people who enter our lives by chance are the ones who remind us what kindness, trust, and connection really mean. I had let him sleep on the couch, but what came next was the beginning of a friendship, a bond, and maybe even the possibility of something deeper. And it all started with a simple act of opening the door.